Hello, welcome to another episode of the Bubbs on Sports podcast. Today is Friday, February 9th, 2 days before Super Bowl 58 in Vegas. As you can see, we are live in Vegas. Just kidding. We are not. Decided to change up the background, make it look a little cooler for this big event. It is Super Bowl weekend, Super Bowl Sunday, just a little under 48 hours away. Although by the time many of you are watching this, we'll be just a little over or a little under 40 hours away still from Super Bowl Sunday. We are here. It has arrived. It's crazy. The NFL season flew by. One more game. As always, joining me is DiMari. DiMari, how's it going, man? One more game left. It's bittersweet. I will say that probably is the simplest way to put it.
Yeah, one more game, like you said, the season flew by so fast. So
Yeah.
now we're kind of getting to that point where if you're not kind of big on basketball in the NBA, you're like,
Yeah.
what am I watching for the next few months? But we're not all the way out the loop with football. The
Mhm.
combine is going to start up here soon, and we got some pro days, Senior Bowl just passed, NFL draft coming up soon. So yeah, we're not gonna be out too long, but for those who do enjoy watching it year round and really enjoy just the games every Sunday, Saturday, whatever the case is, you got some time until we're back. So just enjoy the Super Bowl while you can.
Yeah, definitely. And I was thinking about that earlier, like what you just said there. Super Bowl Sunday, sometimes during the day around like that 2 o'clock range, you're like, oh, just get me to the game already.
Yeah.
Just to all the people out there, just enjoy Super Bowl Sunday, even if the day seems like it's going by slow, because the next time you'll have football, and we say this every year in the off season, especially the rest of February, where it really is pretty long. The next time you have meaningful football is September. Other than you got obviously preseason in August, but that's just not the same. Meaningful football again that actually counts would be September, which is a very long time. But of course, you got free agency, which certainly takes up some time, and then you've obviously got the draft, and then once May, June rolls around, you have OTAs, mini camp, and then you get that 40-day range before training camp. It'll be here before you know it. But we do have one final game. We'll get to that here in a second. We'll break down all different angles of that. But we'll first start with the NFL honors last night, giving out the awards. Now, last week, we did a little bit of a season recap episode where we discussed some of our top games, some of the top players, top teams, and of course, gave away our award predictions. Now, I'll just give you, ask you some of your main thoughts here from last night, your main takeaways. Not too many surprises. I think the biggest surprises probably came at Defensive Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, and Comeback Player of the Year. But other than that, I think the Rookie of the Years, the MVP, the Offensive Player of the Year was as expected. What was your main takeaways from the NFL honors last night?
Well, yeah, I agree with you for the most part. Besides maybe MVP, you kind of know my stance on that. I mean,
Yeah.
just looking statistically, Dak had a way better year than Lamar
Mm-hmm.
did. And I mean, maybe if we're talking about Dallas doesn't lose to Miami, where the defense kind of crumbles at the end of that game, we're talking about Dak being the MVP. So,
Yeah.
I am kind of feeling some type of way about that. This was obviously the best season he's ever had, and I felt like he was snubbed, but that's just me. But I know it might contradict. I'm glad Lamar won it. We've talked briefly about Lamar, so I'm glad he did win it. But I do think Dak deserved it. But also, again, kind of on that route, Defensive Player of the Year. I don't know what that award's about
Yeah.
anymore. I mean, it should have been T.J. Watt. I don't know. Maybe I don't watch a lot of Cleveland, so I'm really not too sure about the Myles Garrett thing, but was on Twitter earlier. I see Michael Parsons kind of backing up Myles Garrett. Kind of crazy how the two, like Dallas and Cleveland, were just going back and forth, with Parsons and Njoku, the Pro
Yeah.
Bowl. But Parsons was just saying, Garrett is more deserving of it. Stop looking at the stats, look at the film type of thing. But I don't know. It's hard to not look at the stats with what TJ Watt did compared to what Myles Garrett did. So, Watt was snubbed, of course. D'Amico Ryans for Coach of the Year was snubbed, of course. And DeMar Hamlin, who I think should have won the reward. I mean, we know what he went through on the field. And like you said last week, I mean, you can't really come
Yeah.
back from sucking, which was
Yeah.
Joe Flacco's thing, I guess, like how you used to say, well, how you said a few shows back, he was a statue. Then all of a sudden he
Yeah.
was like prime Tom Brady. But, the rewards was good. Some guys deserving of what they won. So that's how you kind of know we're getting towards the end of the season when the reward show is here. So bittersweet.
Yeah, and I agree with you with your stance on Lamar. Like when you look at all the other numbers from the other quarterbacks there, even Allen, obviously you mentioned Dak and even Purdy, and even CMC there, they all were better statistically than Lamar. So you can make a strong case that a lot of those other guys should have won the award. Um, I just think, just from Dak's perspective, it's anytime like the Cowboys mess up, anytime they hit a little bit of a bump in the road, people are just going to criticize and pound him and pound him and
Yeah,
pound him and just
absolutely.
destroy him. And that's what makes it so tough to play in that market, play for that team, is every time that Cowboys struggle or anytime there's a little bit of an issue, they're all going to blame the quarterback, and that's certainly going to hurt his odds. So Dak definitely should have gotten more recognition when you look at the numbers, when you look at what he was able to do this year, bouncing back from a little bit of a rougher season last year to come out this year and do that was certainly a little bit under recognized, I guess, if that's the word you want to
Yeah.
use for
And
his
just
2023
two
campaign.
things I kind of want to throw in
Mhm.
there. One being if Dak and Lamar switch places on opposite teams, Lamar will not have won the MVP. That's all I'm saying with that.
Mhm.
And if Dak had this season on 31 other teams, I mean, the season goes the exact way, same losses, same everything,
Yeah.
kind of just down to the T. He would have won the MVP on any other team. But again, like you just said, you're playing in that market with the star on your helmet, and all the good is a team thing, and it's the defense, and it's Dan Quinn and all the playmakers, and then all the bad. No matter if they give up 40 points to Green Bay, who hadn't scored 30 points
Mhm.
all season, it's like, oh, your quarterback sucks. It's just one of those things. But who cares about MVP? I guess hopefully they can go get them a Lombardi trophy.
Yeah, that's ultimately all that matters is the team goals. And then to your point too, with the defense player, yeah, I don't really understand that award either. I understand what Michael Parsons was saying about you have to watch the film, watch him play, and I'll admit, like you did, I don't watch a ton of Cleveland Browns football. I mean, I don't, so I didn't
Yeah,
see a ton of it, but it's like when you look at the stats, literally every single statistical category you can find for edge rushers, he led him. TJ Watt led Myles Garrett, like every single one. So
he even had an
I just don't
interception.
see
Like
it. Yeah.
he had an interception. That is
Hmm.
from an edge rusher. That is
Yep.
crazy. And more onto that because again, I don't know if they do this with Myles Garrett because we obviously don't watch a lot of Cleveland. But
Yep.
TJ Watt and same with Micah Parsons, even though he's a linebacker, but you can drop both of those guys back in coverage,
Hmm.
and Myles Garrett doesn't do that. So those two guys, and I'm just more about Watt here since I feel like he was the biggest snub for it. I mean, he's so versatile, and you can just do so much with him. You can play him all over the field. So for him to not win the reward, I don't know. It's kind of mind blowing to me. Again,
Yeah.
now I kind of want to tune into more Cleveland next year to see what I'm really
Yeah.
missing out on Myles Garrett, but yeah, TJ Watt, I don't know. At this point, I don't know what he has to do to win the rewards. I feel like it's every year since he's been in the league, he's become the second place runner up for this reward. It's about time he wins it.
Yeah. It's when you look at the ESPN article, I find this funny. Looking at like the paragraph about Myles Garrett, look at some of these numbers. It just proves the point further that probably TJ Watt should have won. It says, oh, Myles Garrett had 35 pass rush wins. Only one other edge rusher in the NFL had more than 20. TJ Watt. Like, it's like it just shows you
Yeah,
there what all these guys were, what TJ Watt was able to do. And then you even just look at some of these other numbers where, finished second in pass rush win rate. He did face the highest double team rate, which I hear a lot of people talk about, is he fights
yeah,
off double teams, which to still put up his numbers and he eats up more double teams than TJ Watt does. That definitely seems to have a little bit of an impact on it. It seems like, and I think that's what Micah Parsons is trying to get at, where you got to watch the games, you got to watch the film, see him getting double teamed, even triple teamed, and still putting up those numbers. So it's certainly it's interesting. Nothing against Myles Garrett, he's a monster, but I just think TJ Watt deserves a little bit more credit than
yeah.
we're all giving
That
him.
he's given. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and two, like we talk about the most valuable thing. You take away TJ Watt, the Steelers are terrible. They're terrible. I don't know the whole record of the Browns without, Garrett at all. Like, I don't know that right off the top of my head, but I do know when the Steelers are without TJ Watt, they are awful. They're all
Yeah,
terrible.
yeah. When he got hurt this year, I remember. I think he ended up playing the game where he ended up getting hurt like the week before, and he was kind of questionable. And I think he did play. Don't quote me
Mhm.
on that, but if I'm correct, when it was kind of looking like TJ Watt wasn't playing that week, I think the city of Pittsburgh was like running around, heads
Yeah.
on fire, panic, didn't know what to do. Like you don't. Again, I don't know, but I feel like that's not the thing with Cleveland because they have so much more talent around them defensively, if Garrett does have to take a game off for injury,
Yeah.
it's not a big deal how we think because they're so deep kind of
Hmm.
everywhere else, at least from what I've seen from Cleveland. And I mean, the stats show they were one of the best teams defensively in football. But like you
Yeah.
just said, with Pittsburgh, TJ Watt's not playing, you're just like, that defense is giving up 40 points this week. So, I don't know. Again, I don't know what he has to do to win the reward. I think he's
Yeah.
more than deserving of it. I think he's a better player than Myles Garrett, but I guess it is what it is.
Yeah. I just looked up the record actually. So they're 4-11 with Myles Garrett when he's out, which isn't great, but the Steelers are 1-10 without TJ Watt. So
Wow.
it's just like
That
the
says
Steelers are
everything.
significantly worse. So yeah, it was a big night for the Browns. Obviously Stefanski also took home Coach of the Year, which I will say I think this one stings as a Jet fan just because the fact that the Browns dealt with the same issues the Jets dealt with this year and still came away with getting to the playoffs, still had their coach win Coach of the Year. And it just continues to show you that you cannot just throw a season away. You cannot just give up on a season just because your quarterback goes down. And this year was a perfect example of that. So as I saw Stefanski win that award last night, you can't help but think the Jets side of things, where it's just me as a Jet fan, but the Jets side of things where it's like, that is as bad as a look as the Jets as it can get. Stefanski dealt with the same issues here. He's winning Coaching of the Year, and the Jets they went from Super Bowl to survival mode, and they were content with 7 wins,
And I
which
mean,
I just don't understand.
maybe even more probably, the Browns went through. You deal with
Mm-hmm.
three
Yeah.
quarterbacks. I know the Jets did too, but the Browns were kind of to injury. I think Zach Wilson did get hurt if I remember, but they were talking about benching him like before
Yeah.
anything when he was just playing bad. But I mean, we're talking about you lose one of the best rushers in all of football and Nick Chubb, and then you're playing, like hot potato at the quarterback position, and your defensive guys are getting hurt. And remember, this team beat the 49ers, so we're about to go
Yeah.
watch in the Super Bowl in a few days with
Mm-hmm.
their practice squad quarterback, basically.
Yeah.
So, like you said, you just said it perfectly. I mean, the whole ship doesn't sink when one guy goes down. If anything, that's when everyone needs to come together more and
Yeah.
kind of, help get to that next step. And we've seen it with Dallas last year, also with Cooper Rush. And the Jets kind of just, when Rodgers went down, they called it a quits.
Yeah. Yeah. They gave up, which I still don't understand how a franchise where people are paying to go to games. It's one thing to go through a rebuild and not go all in on one year, and it's another thing to where you have your expectations as a Super Bowl, and then all these fans buy in, all these people buy tickets, and then just say, we're just going to give up. We're not even going to try. And it's terrible. And this was the worst year because you saw all these teams have success with backups. Like you said, taking down the Niners with your PJ Walker is something that I don't think many people saw coming. But that, I think, pretty much describes 2023 campaign. Very, very crazy year. And then the comeback player of the year, obviously Flacco. So the two biggest nights was for the Browns and the Texans, of course, Stroud and Will Anderson taking home Rookie of the Year honors. But yeah, we talked about this last week, and then after this, we'll get to the Super Bowl stuff. But the whole most improved thing, I think, has to be a greater discussion because
Yeah,
you can't come back from sucking. You just can't, like you
I
said.
agree.
So it's just more, I think, than ever this year. You gotta next year, future years, potentially really look into the possibility of a most improved award and then a comeback player of the year award, which I still think Breece Hall should have been in the conversation for that. But like Baker Mayfield, Joe Flacco should have been most improved. And then your comeback player of the year should have been Breece. That should have been your DeMar Hamlin's. So I know we talked about that a little bit earlier on, but just more thoughts on that. It, definitely an interesting award, and it's become a little bit more talked about this year more than ever just because of the people that were in it.
Yeah.
So now we move to the main event this Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, the final game of the 2023 season. It is the 49ers and the Chiefs. According to ESPN Analytics, they're giving the Niners a 59.4% chance of winning and the Chiefs a 40.6% chance of winning. San Francisco's a small 1.5-point favorite, although I think this is the first time in a while that I actually feel like the favorite is the underdog in this game, which is certainly interesting. Over under set at 47.5. Las Vegas, Super Bowl 58. what is just your overall thoughts heading into this one before we get into each individual team?
I kind of want to highlight the Chiefs defense and the weapons of the 49ers. I mean, we don't put the
Mhm.
Chiefs defense up there with, the top five, top three, maybe even top eight. I
Yeah.
don't think they got the recognition that they deserve, but I mean, I think this might be the best defense that Mahomes has had, since he's been at quarterback. And I could be wrong, but just from what I've seen from this year, we're talking about a unit that doesn't force a lot of turnovers and don't really have a bunch of big names on the defensive side. So this
Yeah.
defense, to kind of what they accomplished to get how far they are, which not taking nothing away from Mahomes, but that defense does deserve a lot of credit for where they're at because this was the worst he's had, worst team around him, offensively and weapon wise. So I really want to see how Andy Reid is going to kind of get that defense going to slow down those 49er weapons. Who are they going to focus on? Are you taking McCaffrey out of the game? Are you taking Debo Samuel out of the game? The game
Yeah.
plan going into that, I'm very interested. And I think that might make or break the game this week. I mean, I don't see either team turning the ball over a lot because they weren't doing it during the season whatsoever. So it's just going to be who's going to line up in front of who and who's going to be the best man coming off the line, getting to the quarterback, blocking the rushers. I'm interested to see just how good the Chiefs defense is, but also just how good Brock Purdy is going to be if everything's not going its way.
Yeah, it's really going to be an exciting like coaching dual X's and O's matchup between Steve Spagnuolo and Kyle Shanahan. Um, just because of the talent there. I mean, the Chiefs shut down the Ravens, who many thought were at home, we're gonna blow by them and get to obviously the Super Bowl. Of course, they shut down the MVP and Lamar Jackson, and even caused the Bills some problems as well, and of course the Dolphins in the wild card round. The Chiefs defense you mentioned for a while now, the issue with the team has been, I think this is the first year in a while that the defense is actually the stronger part of their team, maybe
I
the
agree.
first year ever. Like you were saying, not much talent, obviously, on the offensive side of the football. Of course, you've still got Kelsey, and Rashee Rice has done some good things. But outside of that, it's a whole lot of unproven guys that really aren't your guys that you would be think having big roles on a Super Bowl team are a lot of these key receivers for the Chiefs. You just wouldn't think that'd be the case, which it is. But you know, uh, L'Jarius Sneed's had a very good season. Chris Jones, obviously, in the interior is a monster, and it's going to be really fun to watch some of these edge guys like Carla Fitz go up against, the Trent Williams, who's obviously a monster for the Niners at tackle. So there's a lot of really good of those one-on-one matchups. Of course, you mentioned Debo, CMC against this Chiefs run defense is going to be a lot of fun. What do you feel is just from like a Chiefs defensive perspective? What do you feel they need to do to shut down San Francisco's offense? How do you feel they need to take away these guys?
I don't know. That's tough. I'm just watching San Francisco. I can't remember exactly what Cleveland did against them, but whatever Cleveland
Mhm.
did is what they're going to have to do. I know that game, it was some weather that kind of played a part in it, but I think the Browns defense played better than any other defense. Well, played better than any other defense against the 49ers. We could
Yeah.
argue the Ravens as well. So just a little bit of the mix of what those two did because I don't see a way where they really take a lot of these guys out of the game.
Mhm.
You have to slow them down. You're not going to
Yeah.
completely shut them down. So I mean, I guess if I had to answer, it's going to start with slowing down McCaffrey and
Yeah.
putting Purdy in, second and long, third and long, where he has to drop back and throw the ball, which he has done pretty well. Drop back throwing the ball this year, but I still don't think he's fully there as they drop back passers. So
Yeah.
you know, limit McCaffrey and just try to shell him. I guess I'm trying to say, try to shell him. Don't let him get to the explosive plays and the big runs because he's kind of one of those guys to me where once he gets going, it's you're not stopping him. It's over with. So if they can
Mhm.
kind of control that and just force Purdy to beat you throwing the ball, I think that's going to be their best bet if they want to win.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point there with not letting McCaffrey get off to that quick start, not letting McCaffrey find a groove. And I think that's just the common theme in general for this Chiefs defense early on is to get off to a fast start. Look, Brock Purdy, while he's an MVP candidate, He's taken the league by storm, Mr. Irrelevant. He's still a 24-year-old kid who is just in his second season playing in his first Super Bowl. If you can get off to a fast start from a Kansas City perspective, shutting down these weapons or at least containing them, containing McCaffrey, because early on they're going to look to get the ball to McCaffrey. Try and ease Purdy into it. Take the pressure, take the weight off of his shoulders, get a couple nice runs, set up, if you get into those third down situations early in the game, set up those 3rd and 4, those 3rd and 3 short situations where, like you said, you don't have to rely on Purdy to drop back and throw a ball 10, 15 yards, 15, 20 yards downfield and make a big play on a 3rd and long. Make those 3rd and long simple, keep things easy for him. I know a lot of people want to call him a game manager. I guess if just let him manage, let the guys around him do what they do. But I think that's from a Kansas City perspective. If you can get off to a fast start, hit Purdy, get to him, knock him around a little bit, shut down, slow down McCaffrey, puts all the pressure on San Francisco. Purdy's already nervous. You're only going to get him more nervous. You're only going to get in his head even more. And that's where those turnovers, bad mistakes could come into play. So the first quarter and a half of this game, I think you're going to get a good idea of where things are going. Now, the Niners, I also think it's important for them to start fast because the Niners, and we could discuss this too here, the Niners, they've come back in these last 2 games against the Packers and the Lions. They fall down by 10-13 in this game. They're not coming back. I just don't see that. Would you agree? They
No,
got to get off to
yeah,
a fast start. You can't
if
rely
if
on a
they
comeback.
fall by 10-13, I just don't see it happening. I mean, I'm not gonna say lucky with the NFL, but they were supposed to lose Green Bay game. Well, both games, Green Bay. I guess I'll talk about it just briefly here. Then going back to what you're asking, because Green Bay and Detroit both had leads, and they just started making mental mistakes by going for it on 4th down, chasing points when they could have just
Yeah.
took the 3. Where it happened multiple times in the Detroit
Mm-hmm.
game. And Green Bay, I know one for sure, they went for it, 4th down, got stopped. So the Chiefs aren't going to be in that position where they're chasing points, and because they know they're going to score regardless. So yeah, if you're San Fran, you can't fall behind because the Chiefs aren't going to make those same mistakes and just be as aggressive as those
Yeah.
other 2 teams were.
Yeah, you're not going to see Andy Reid go for it twice on 4th down. That's not going
Not
to
at
happen.
all.
I mean,
Not at
they do
all.
go for it, but not in dumb situations like Dan Campbell was doing it. So, yeah, I think the opposites here. Start quick for San Francisco, get off to an early lead, take the weight off of Purdy's shoulders, and then start fast for Kansas City defensively. Put that pressure on Purdy. Set your offense up in good field position. Force a turnover early on. All those big things I think are key there. So that's kind of Chiefs defense versus Niners offense. You flip to the other side of things, and it's another good matchup. Now, I do think there is a little bit of concern with this Chiefs or the Niners defense rather. They're not as dominant as they've always been. I don't know. It seems a little bit of that might be coaching. Some of it is Chase Young's been a non-factor. He's a guy that he hasn't done anything. He's not. You don't even notice he's out there. Look, I don't think he's going to go out there and have a huge game, but he's a guy that I think you got to try and find a way to get involved, get to the quarterback. Because look, the more time Mahomes has, the more opportunity he has for Kelsey to get open downfield, find the holes in the defense. They've got to get to Mahomes. What do you feel are some keys here for San Francisco's defense, which has been, I think a lot of people thought it was their strength there for a while. It's not necessarily been the case.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. I'm gonna start up front with Chase Young and Randy Gregory. I mean, 2, 3 years ago, when Chase Young came in and Gregory was over in Dallas, if those 2 guys from those years were on this San Fran defense, I mean, there'd be no doubt whatsoever that they could possibly go out and just shut down the Chiefs. But both of those guys haven't been what they were a few years ago, and just again non-factors. I can't even recall Randy Gregory being on the field half the time. Same with Chase Young. You
Yeah.
kind of just never know if they're on the field and where they're at. Everything is just coming down to Nick Bosa, which the game plan will be to stop Nick Bosa. So I think for the 49ers defense, you said it perfectly. They haven't been as dominant as they were. I mean, if they come out and play how they did against Dallas, I think the Chiefs are going to have a very hard time. But I just don't see it happening because there's some weaknesses in that defense, and which is the secondary. And we saw that this year that you can throw the ball on this 49ers team. You just got to be smart with it. And I think their defense is kind of a similar to Dallas, where it's like if we play ahead, we're going to bully you all game. But if we're
Yeah.
playing behind, we're going to struggle, and we kind of start to panic and try to make plays, and that's where we start to make mistakes. And I think the Chiefs is one team that will do it, where to make you panic and start making mistakes and some mental errors. So I think perfectly, like you said, is going to have to be that front seven for the 49ers if they want any chance at a fast start. Chase Young, Randy Gregory, obviously Bosa, Fred Warner, all those guys in that front
Yeah.
seven are going to have to absolutely bring it from the first snap.
Yeah, no doubt. I totally agree. And there's a chance too. Of course, a lot of their attention too is going to be on Bosa, and that's where the Gregories, the Chase Youngs of the world have got to come in, get to Mahomes, get to the quarterback. Because you talk about the secondary being a little bit of an issue. This is what makes Kansas City so tough to beat. And I remember, look, we've watched a ton of Kansas City. Obviously, they've been throughout the playoffs, but I always remember too when I was getting ready for them to play the Jets and um, week earlier in the season, uh, like watching Kelsey's film, watching him run his routes is just so it's wild because he doesn't really run routes. He just finds holes in the defense, turns
Find the
around,
hole.
and
That's
yeah, it
it.
gets open. And that's what makes it so tough. And that's why you give Mahomes time, they're gonna dice you up because he's gonna find a hole. The secondary is not gonna be able to hold up for 6-7 seconds if Mahomes is buying time, rolling out of the pocket, and obviously finding a man. And that's where you've got to get up front. So, and I'll say this: if the Chiefs don't at least, I think you gotta at least sack Mahomes at least 3 times. I think if you want to come
Three
away with a
times.
win.
I
Yeah.
think 3 to 4. That's solid.
Yeah. I agree. I think if you're under that, you're probably seeing a Chiefs win. So then you look here at more of the Chiefs offense. Again, we kind of just mentioned Kelsey. Pacheco's been a beast this season. What are your expectations for, Pacheco going to this game as well? Kind of an underrated guy when you compare him to a CMC, not as known, but a very underrated running back out of Rutgers, has put together a very nice career so far, and is a big reason why the Chiefs are where they are. As you can make the case he's the most talented guy in the offense, weapon wise, outside of Kelsey.
Yeah, I think it's very hard to count him out. I mean, they've played a few
Yep.
teams this year where I'm going to use Buffalo as an example, where they're playing and you're kind of just like, he's not going to have a great game. And
Mm-hmm.
the Eagles are another one. Two teams where were I guess decent against the run, to where you think they're going to come in that game prepared. And you're like, Pacheco's not going to have a great game because they're going to focus on stopping
Yep.
him more than Travis Kelsey in some instances. And I mean, you can't count him out. I mean, you watch him run and you see him hit
Yep.
at 3 yards, and you see the legs are still going. And he's picking
Yep.
up another 5, 6 here, so he's going to be a big piece for the offense. I think they got to use him a lot more out the backfield as far as a receiving back. Kind of try to throw him the ball, get in some open space, some blockers in front of him. I just don't see him having a great game if everything's kind of just turn around and hand the ball off, because that 49ers defense, they struggle, but as a unit when it comes to stopping the run, that's where they play their best, and they will bring it to stop the run. So you're going to have to kind of use him in a lot of different ways here to find some success for him early. Because like McCaffrey, once he gets that quick start and he gets going, it's going to be hard to stop him.
Yeah, you mentioned with the legs going, he's not the smoothest runner in the world.
Yeah,
He's not, he doesn't make it look too easy, but he's such a tough downhill physical runner, not afraid of contact, will lower his shoulder and pick up 4 yards after contact, lower his shoulder, get into some of these big guys on the defense side of the football and still be able to make plays. He's been such a monster. I mean, you can make the case the Chiefs would not be here right now if it wasn't for Pacheco. He's had 3 touchdowns in each of these 3 playoff games. He's this postseason as a whole, 254 rushing yards. That's 4 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns. Just again, he can go out there and pick up. He's like that. He's kind of both that type of physical short yardage back and also a guy that can go out there and pick up easily 10 to 12 if he breaks free and finds a lane. That's what makes him so good. He's also, underrated as well in the receiving game. I know they haven't gotten him really involved. He's only had 6 receptions through 3 games here in the playoffs for 27 yards as a receiver, but a guy that during the regular season had a couple of those 6, 7, 5, reception games where you can get him involved out of the backfield, which just adds another element to this offense. So he's a special player. And Rashee Rice, too, another guy, has really kind of, I think he's not there yet, but has really starting to mold into potential future number one, number two receiver for this Chiefs team. Not there yet, but you're starting to see the upside with him.
Yeah, I agree with him. I mean, I think they bring in a wide receiver one, which might be priority this offseason. They bring in a wide receiver one to take him under, his wing and just let Rice be that wide receiver two next year. And he won't be the focus, even though Kelsey is the focus. But I mean, going into,
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw out a random name, DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre
Yeah.
Hopkins is in a Chiefs uniform. That game plan is going to be Kelsey one, Hopkins two, Rice three, where we're going to focus on as far as how we're going to play against you and what type of coverages we're going to run. So, I mean, I 100% agree where he's not all the way there yet, but he's been such a bright star. And like Pacheco, if it wasn't for him, I mean, they wouldn't be where they're at right now because he came along late in the season and he's been consistent and he's getting the targets. Mahomes trusts him. So I feel like he's going to have a big game as well on Sunday, just to stay in that game. Not saying really a breakout game, but it's possible with that secondary and with Mahomes.
Yeah, definitely. And, just in terms of keys for this game for both teams, we talked about San Francisco. It's all about getting to Mahomes, and Mahomes has only been sacked twice. So we mentioned setting that 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 sack goal limit, I think is a realistic thing for this Niners defense to try and achieve if they want to come away with a win. Mahomes has only been sacked the entire playoffs, and that came last week. Prior, those 2 games against Miami and Buffalo wasn't sacked at all. So in terms of keys for the Niners defense, we talked about getting to the quarterback. What is your key for the Chiefs on offense? And then if you have any other thoughts on the Niners defensively.
I think for the offense for the Chiefs, and I know it might sound crazy, but slow the game down just as much as possible, which you're gonna have to run
Mm-hmm.
the ball very well to do so. But again, you don't want to keep giving that ball back to the 49ers offense because eventually they're gonna get hot. They're gonna figure it out. And we've seen it when they played against the Lions, where the Lions were they
Yep.
were striking quick, but they were also controlling the game at the line of scrimmage and the time of possession. They were running the ball so well, and then here and there, they were just throwing balls down the field. So I think for the Chiefs, you just want to keep the 49ers off the field as much as possible, especially if they're hot, especially if they're rolling. And that's going to be their key to win this game on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree. I'll go, definitely for from that San Francisco perspective, I definitely agree. Chiefs too, also just protecting Mahomes, getting off that fast start. You mentioned slowing the game down. And I'll also say this, limit the penalties. The Chiefs this year have had a
Yeah.
lot of have a lot of false starts, specifically on the up front. They've had just I don't know where exactly they are in the league, but Jawan Taylor has had
He's
so
been
many
he's
penalties.
had a very rough
Yeah,
season this year
it's
when it
like
comes to penalties.
it's just like watching Mekhi Becton. It really is because he had got a ton of penalties as well. But yeah, that too, like you got to limit the penalties, and even if you got Bose lining up to you, even if you got Chase Young, obviously you can't jump. The penalties, they will kill you in these games. And just an overall thing for San Francisco, they've got to keep their foot on the gas the entire way because we've seen the Chiefs come back in so many of these games. We saw it 2019, they came back. Last year, they did it as well in the Super Bowl. Like when the Chiefs win, a lot of times it's coming back. And we've seen the Niners come back this year, but we'd mentioned it. The Niners are probably not going to be able to fall down 14-3 early on and be able to win. They're just not. A lot of those reasons they got here is because the Packers just play calling wise in the second half wasn't smart. And then, of course, the 2 fourth downs, like we talked about, they got to play a full 60 minutes. You cannot beat Kansas City with just 30 minutes of football, 45 minutes of football. You got to play a full 60-minute clean game, no turnovers, no free chances to Kansas City where you give them good field position, win field position battle. And then I think that's where San Francisco can come away with the win. So now is the game pick time. Again, San Francisco 1.5-point favorites, although it feels like the Chiefs are the favorites. We could both agree we're rooting for San Francisco, but is your rooting interest your game pick as well?
It's kind of hard to say I'm rooting for San Francisco. I mean, I kind of hate both.
Yeah, that's true.
So if I had to take a pick, and you said it when we're doing playoffs, it's hard to kind of pick against Mahomes. But in this case, I think I am going to take the 49ers. I think Kyle Shanahan, you gave him 2 weeks to prepare, and they're just going to do everything they can to help Brock Purdy just be successful and thrive. So give me the 49ers. This is going to be a good one. I think it's actually going to be a lot more high scoring than we think, where these teams might be able to combine for maybe, 70 to 80 points. So I'm going to take the 49ers on this one by 5.
I am rooting for the Niners, although we always talk. I really wanted to see the Lions, but it is what it is. I guess anything to just not have that whole Travis Kelce Taylor Swift celebration is
Absolutely.
another thing. But I'm gonna actually go Chiefs here. I can't go against them. Mahomes Super Bowl. Even though the Niners are by far the more talented team, it's Mahomes. I can't go against them here. I went against them last year. I learned the hard way. I haven't. Maybe that means the Niners are going to win because I haven't predicted a Super Bowl right in a couple of years. The last time I think I predicted it right was 2019. So it's been a minute. So the Niners will probably win. I'm cursing the Chiefs right now. Sorry, Chiefs fans. But I'll take Kansas City. I'm going to go a little bit lower scoring. I'm going to go Chiefs 27-17. I think they win by 10. I don't know. It's Mahomes. I don't trust. The Niners have done a lot of really good this year, but I didn't love what I saw from them in the 2 playoff games. I just didn't. I'm worried that they're going to fall down again and they're not going to be able to come back like they've been. The Chiefs are just better than the Packers and the Lions, and they're smarter than what the Packers and the Lions did in those second half of those games. And that's just my worry. Like, those 2 49er wins were not convincing at all. If they were convincing, I definitely take the Niners, but I'm worried that the Chiefs are going to come out fast. They're more experienced. There's going to be some nerves from the Niners' perspective, at least from Brock Purdy, and that's going to cause a problem. So I'll take the Chiefs here 27-17. So that's your Super Bowl picks. Any other closing thoughts? Any bold predictions for touchdowns? Somebody scoring a touchdown? Any bold predictions for this one before we close things out?
Well, I will get to that one real quickly, but I think I'm going to go back on what I said. Just kind of how you just went off. The Niners haven't looked too good, and now I think
Yeah.
about it. I mean, they only scored like 40 against Detroit because they gave up 28 at halftime or 24
Yeah.
at halftime and played from behind. So I lied. I don't see these two teams combining for 80 to 70 points. I think that's bizarre. Low scoring, I agree. I mean, maybe 50 at most that they combine, but definitely a low scoring. A bold prediction. Oh, I was kind of seeing some things where I don't know, maybe an offensive lineman scores a touchdown on Sunday. I feel like this is a game where they just kind of just start throwing out everything that can possibly
Everything.
win. They're kind of in Madden going to the bottom of the playbook. They're just like, what can I possibly run? Um, Jawan Taylor touchdown. I don't know. That's insane, but yeah, that's gonna be my bold one, my bold prediction.
Jawan Taylor touchdown. He gets called back because he had a false start.
Because I see it
Or a
happening.
hold. But
Holding definitely is gonna be a holding.
that's good. So you'll go Chiefs offensive line touchdown. I would agree. I would agree too that I think that if there was a team that scored an offensive line touchdown, it'd definitely be Kansas City because they would be the team to do that and draw that up. Um, what do we think here? Sam Darnold, Super Bowl MVP,
Oh my
comes in
goodness.
for Purdy. Comes in for Purdy. Sam Darnold takes him to the house. Bold prediction. I'm just kidding. That's not happening.
That would be insane.
That would be wild. Um, bold. If I have a bold prediction, I like the offensive line prediction. I'll admit, I do like that. I think
I might
that's
throw
a good
one
one.
more in
Maybe an octopus. Maybe somebody gets a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. I'll
there. I
go.
can
Why not? We'll go. Travis Kelce's too obvious. Let's see the Niners. We'll go Debo Samuel octopus. Go Debo Samuel octopus. They're down like later in the game, trying to get back into it. Debo scores and then they'll get him on the 2-point. I'll go Debo Samuel octopus. Let's do that.
well,
Bold
if we want to
prediction.
throw one more in there, if Jawan Taylor doesn't score, maybe Kadarius Tony Super Bowl MVP. I mean, he
That
did
is
say he's a wide receiver one if he gets the ball. That was his words during interviews not too long ago. So, if he's wide receiver one, this could be the game. So if I don't see Jawan Taylor scoring, Kadarius Tony Super Bowl MVP.
Kadarius Tony. Imagine like Darnold throws a touchdown pass. Niners take the lead, and then Kadarius Tony, boom, like 80-yard reception. Chiefs take the lead back. Just imagine that
Insane.
sequence. That would
Insane.
perfectly sum up the 2023 season, if we're being honest. 2 backups doing something productive. It's
Yeah,
that'd be
if
wild.
that's the script for the Super Bowl, if that's what we're about to witness, I mean, I don't even think the halftime show or the commercials are going to be the best. Like,
No.
the highlight of the game. I will definitely be looking to Sam Darnold throwing a 60-yard bomb to like Jawan Jennings on 3rd and 15 for some odd
Yeah.
reason. Just for Kadarius Toney to come back 80-yard bomb from Patrick Mahomes, who threw the ball like backwards. I don't know. It's the Chiefs, it's the Niners. You never know what we're going to get from these two.
Yeah, no doubt. I think this game does have definitely some room for some craziness by far. I would even say it could even be more crazy if the Lions were in it because like you'd have Dan Campbell going for it on 4th down every
Fourth
time.
and 36
Yeah, fourth
from his own
36 to
red,
go for it.
from his own 15.
Throw it deep downfield. Jared Goff to Josh Reynolds. He drops it. Oh
Don't say that
man.
one too much. I think Lions fans are still
Yeah.
scarred PTSD from
I would
Josh
never
Reynolds
get over that.
drops.
That would take me an entire offseason to get over. You'd have to, that would take me, not even an offseason. You'd have to get back. You'd have to win it before I get over that. That was brutal.
I
Brutal.
can't believe the Pistons really sacrificed a Lions Super Bowl for a win against OKC
Yeah.
and free wings from Wingstop. They should
Yeah.
never be forgiven for what they did.
The Pistons. What a time. What are they? 8-34 now? That's not good.
Yeah,
Not
they're
good at all.
not looking too good.
Not too looking too good.
Just released Killian Hayes. I don't know what they're doing in Detroit. I guess that's been the story for Detroit this whole year between
Yeah.
Dan Campbell going for it every 4th down and the Pistons forgetting how to play basketball. I don't know what they're doing in Detroit. I just
Yeah.
know no one's getting free wings. That's it.
That is true. Yeah, that was like the first time where I genuinely felt for a fan base was the Lions fans. Like usually when teams lose, the fans are always, you do feel for Bills fans obviously a little bit, even though they are our rivals.
I,
You do feel bad for them a little
I
bit
hate the
because
Bills. I can never
you
feel
don't
bad
like the Bills,
for the
but
Bills
yeah, I
or
don't.
Philly. Two teams I can never feel
Yeah,
bad
that's
for.
true.
I hope the worst for your teams. Obviously, nothing crazy, but
That
you
is
can
true.
never win another game for the rest of my life on earth, and I'll be pleased. Never feeling bad.
That is true. But for the Lions, like that was the first time at least because they have no correlation that I could remember where
You know,
I
in
don't
a
didn't care
strange
or
way,
I've cared.
it was a feel good story, but just me, CJ Gardner Johnson kind of got a little obnoxious as the season kind of went by. And I mean, he was waving to the fans on the second quarter. There was no possible way that was going to end up like in a good result for them when he was waving the fans away. I think they went
Yeah,
up 24-7, or it might have been 21. They went up and he started waving to the fans and said, well, you kind of just blew it. And he didn't have a great game. So now it looks even worse for him. So I don't know. I don't feel bad for Detroit either. I'm a Cowboys fan. Why
yeah,
should I
that's
feel
true.
bad? I mean, we haven't went anywhere for 29 years. So how about they report to Cancun and go meet the Cowboys players at the pool yard? I don't feel bad.
Yeah, that is true. I guess yeah. I guess it's just yeah. I mean, you guys obviously had both NFC teams, but I mean, it's hard to. It could be hard to feel bad when you just make dumb mistakes like that, like going for
That's
it
what I'm
that
saying.
much. It's self inflicted. It's not like it was the refs that stepped in or it was some crazy one handed catch when the clocks hit triple zeros. It was your own self inflicted stuff. But anyway,
That's
any other
exactly it.
closing thoughts before we head out of here?
I think that's all. Let's hope for no Swifty anything this
Yep.
Sunday. Good football going. And that was it. It was a great season.
Early Super Bowl prediction for 2025. Way too early before Super Bowl 58 even starts.
Whew. Oh, okay. Let me think about the AFC. I feel like it has to be somebody so random that probably doesn't deserve to be there.
I think I've got it.
I'm,
I'm
I'm gonna
gonna
let you go
go.
first on this one.
I'm gonna go out on a limb in this one. I'm gonna go Texans Packers.
Okay, so
I could
Texans
see,
were the first to pop up for me.
or the Bengals. I could see Burrow coming out and having a big year, but I'll go Texans since that's the Bengals are more the obvious choice.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to go Texans AFC. As far as the NFC, I don't know. That's tough. I mean, I feel like you got the three, I guess, obviouses with Dallas,
Hmm.
Philly, and San Fran, who you think might possibly get there. Wow. Um, I'm probably gonna go Texans, and it's a lot harder than I thought. Texans, Texans, probably Niners again. And I hate to say it with the Niners, but I just don't see nobody in the NFC really coming
Hmm.
out or just having a great improvement, from this
Yeah.
year to next. Give me Texans and Niners.
Yeah.
D'Amico Ryan's homecoming.
I could see that. I could also just see the Chiefs going back to it.
Yeah,
For
that's
being high. Like, they're going to get a number one receiver probably in the offseason. They'll be right back in there anyway. So it'll be interesting. But I think we could probably guarantee the Bills will probably find a way to miss another kick.
yeah. The
Assume
Bills aren't
maybe.
getting it.
No.
Their window is shut, closed, glue sealed.
Miami, Miami automatic out in the wild card round.
They're
You
not.
know
Yeah,
that.
their season's ending before it even starts. I mean, they're going to start
Definitely.
10-1 and pull a Philly, lose
Yep.
first round to like the Colts, which could be another sleeper. Not probably not. Probably not. Never mind. I don't see it.
Yeah. I could see like I know we'll close things out here, but I could see a team like the Chargers maybe making a little bit
I
of a
forgot
run.
about them. Forgot about
Almost
the
like
Chargers.
they've got the talent. They need to shore up some things on defense, but they got the coach. I could see them getting to the playoffs definitely and maybe making a run if they get I mean, they've got Justin Herbert, and Justin Herbert's playing well, and he's finally got a coach. He's got the weapons. Like he can match up well against anybody. I mean, if they have Harbaugh, they win that game against the Jaguars. Who knows how far they go after that? So I could see the Chargers being like one of those underrated teams, but it'll be interesting. We still got to get through this Super Bowl first, but a lot obviously has to happen in the off
Yeah.
season before we get to predict. But it's always fun to look ahead a little bit, and maybe we'll look back on this video a year from now. One of us will be correct. Who knows? We'll see. So that'll do it. Thank you as always for joining us. Enjoy Super Bowl 58, and yeah, end of the NFL season, end of the road. Thanks for watching.